value add real estate. Let's take a look at this. So fix and flip versus buy and hold. What do you fix? What do you not fix? How are you supposed to know what to do and when to do it? Well, I want to show you in this video the do's, the don'ts, the things that's worked for us, the things that have not worked for us, and I want you to get it right the first time. Hi, my name is Brett Riggins. I'm the co-founder of Physician Wealth Systems, and I've dedicated the last 15 years of my life to real estate buying and selling. I've got buy and holds, residentials, mixed-use commercial, that kind of stuff. But I want to show you what's worked for us in the residential, single-family, passive portfolio that we have. Let's take a look at this. So when I started, it said value add, and that's the important piece. We are adding equity, forcing value into these properties by the renovations that we're making. So let's get creative about this and create wealth by adding value. So what I'm breaking down is 6 steps to leveraged passive cash flow. I've created a process here where you can go from 0 to 12 rental properties in just 1 year. Yes, it's a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into it. In and of itself will be a full-time job. I want to show you the tricks and the team that you need to build so it's not a full-time job. Right now we're taking a look at step number 5, which is the renovations. We've found the property, we've built our team, and we've acquired it. It's added to our portfolio. Now we need to decide which repairs need to be made. You can see this whole 6-step process in a book that we wrote called How to Get Rich as a Doctor. There's much more detail in there. It's available on Amazon now, and I'll put the link in the description below. Let's dive into this. Let's see, what are we talking about when we say what renovations need to be made? To fix or not to fix, that is the question. Through this process, I want to make sure that I'm pointing out the critical docs that you'll need for the contractors, and that gives us that clarity in expectations and accountability and communication as well too. I want to talk to you again about the property management agreement at this point in the process, why that's important, as well as the scope of work. The scope of work is going to be the detailed document that explains what's getting repaired, what's not getting repaired, what color is it, what size, how much is it, is there allowance, all that stuff is in the scope of work. The 3 ways that I'm going to break down the scope of work for you is the work required from the insurance company, from the comparative properties that we've looked at, what we call flip to the hood, and the municipalities as well too. So 3 ways we look at the repairs that need to be made. I'm also going to talk about rental grade. What's the grade of material that we're using inside of these renovations? Investment strategy is going to be a driving factor, a decision driving factor for you making these repairs or not making these repairs. And one way we look at that is CapEx versus OpEx. Just talk about that briefly and what that means. Updates and communications, how I get this information from my team. That way, remember, it's a passive process. I want to create a solution for you that's a passive process. So this is what I'm doing to make sure that the updates and communication are happening in a timely manner. Let's go. Contractor, critical docs. So at this point, you may have watched the other videos where I've pointed out 6 critical documents. And what I want to make sure we talk about now is we're going into the renovation. So you've had your inspection. You've probably received a quote or an estimate. Now, in this point of the project, we need that contractor to give us firm contract. So we're saying exactly what this is going to cost. So these numbers need to be firmed up. I don't need estimates. In these documents, you'll see allowances. We can talk about that. But the estimate versus contract. Now I need the actual construction contract, the project management contract that's spelling out all the specifics of what's being done, what's not being done, how much does it cost, and what color is it. All that stuff needs to be done now. The scope of work is definitely something that we're going to dive into a little more. Again, I talked about it briefly. It's the detailed document that's laying out the work that's being completed. It should be part of the contract, the construction contract, project management agreement. Allowances, you're going to have, typically, if you don't have the flooring selection or a specific tile selected, countertop material, these are types of products that we use allowances for, and typically it's going to be a square foot allowance for your countertop, square foot allowance for your floor, and it gives you the ability to stay within your budget when you're making these decisions, and you don't have to have that decision at the time the project starts. Just make sure that the allowances are spelled out and not ambiguously, right? They need to be spelled out as like, all right, I give you $400 for this. Well, what does that cover? Can I even get anything for $400 in that allowance? Draw schedule is really important. That's going to tell you when the contractor is going to request money from you. It's going to tell you the whole total amount of the project, and then the first draw, what they need to complete for that, the second draw, what needs to be done for that, the third draw, and so on. And what that allows you to do is on your weekly updates, you can see I need pictures that this has been completed, and then I can pay for that. So it needs to be clearly laid out in the draw schedule what needs to be completed for those funds to be released. Draw schedule is really important. That'll also show you your timeline too. Timeline lays out in something called the Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart is basically like a line graph, right, that lays out interior here, tile work here. And on this line, you can see the start and finish of the project. So the Gantt chart gives you the timeline. Some of these renovations, I hope that you're not getting into extensive renovations, because the more renovations that are needed, that's the less time that my money is going to be performing, giving me back, getting that monthly rent. Selections. Selections is a great document that tells you, for me, I'm doing the same selections. Even when we were flipping houses, I've got a favorite color that we use. We use a color called Gray Owl at 50%. And we use that all the time. If it's in more of a wood tone, we'll use a pale oak color. It's our go-to color, but it goes on a selection sheet that we have, and I don't have to think about this. I can pass it out. I have a set of appliances I like to use. A toilet. Can't tell me how many toilets I've bought. This is the toilet that we go use, and it goes on our selection sheet. The selection sheet minimizes the need for allowances. Property management agreement. Now, the reason I've put this in here is I just want to make sure that you're seeing this at this point in the process, right? We're doing the renovations, but the property management agreement needs to be in place. That way, the property manager is taking on the responsibility for the utilities. They're taking on the landscaping, the snow removal. I want them managing the property while the renovation is happening. So we want to execute that property management agreement right away, so they're responsible for that. Also, lean on your property manager to provide the standards for improvements and upgrades. They know the location, they know the price range. Hey, they may say, hey, Brett, you need to hit, maybe hit the granite in this one to hit that upper end of the price range. Or they'll tell you, hey, let's stay down a little bit on this gross rent, like monthly, what we're shooting for, and then you don't have to go all out on a renovation. So lean on them. Execute that property management agreement that you're working with them. That's again, building your team is going to be really, really important. Scope of work. So we've talked a little bit about this document particularly. It is the detailed document that's going to drive out what's being done, what's not being done. But again, how do we know what's being done? Keep this in mind, perspective. The goal is to obtain a mortgage to generate cash flow, earn top of the market rent to maximize that cash flow, and mitigate the risk via property insurance. So the two big things that stick out there to me is the mortgage, the rent, and the insurance. So those three things are going to drive these decisions that I'm making. Insurance. So thinking with the end in mind, I know that this property has to be insurable. So what does that mean? You work with your insurance provider. They're going to provide you this list of things that they're going to be looking for. I want to make sure that my scope of work covers what they're looking for. So keep that end in mind when you're generating the solution in the beginning. The roof, age and condition, any missing or curling or shingles, curling shingles over the soffit. This happens actually, depending on where you're at in the United States. This is not typically something I'll see in the north, the Midwest. I'll see this more in the southeast, where the shingles are curling over the end. Excessive wear and tear. They're looking at the condition of the roof. Another thing they're looking at is tree limbs hanging over the roof. exterior peeling of paint or rotting wood, cracking in any patio, walkway, driveway, causing tripping. That's the big piece. Now, when I'm flipping a house or keeping it for buy and hold, I have no value, most of the time, I have no value in that surface, the gravel versus driveway. I'm looking at it when I'm deriving my ARV, my after repair value, make sure I'm comparing apples to apples. But I'm not going to spend $20,000 on a driveway because I'm not going to get it back out of the property. What I want you to focus on is you need to make sure you're mitigating your risk, removing liability of the trip and fall. So if you have any cracks that may present an issue, those are the things that the insurance company are going to be looking at. Overgrown vegetation, moss on the exterior of the home, clean the gutters out. These are the simple things that should go in your scope of work every single time that your contractor, your general, your project manager, you're taking care of these every single project. Windows and doors sealed properly, means open and close. You don't have wind whipping through the door, that kind of thing. No bars on the window. That's going to be probably more of a market decision than the insurance itself. So dogs and pools. Okay, dogs, some are allowed, so make sure that your property management company is aware of that, not necessarily the repairs, but just a note on here. Pools is a big thing. If you have a pool, and you need to make sure that your insurance provider will cover that for you. In the rental world, in our buy and hold, I don't want anything to do with a pool. I will also warn you from my experience, filling in a pool, there's a process. I've filled in a couple pools. I've bought a few houses where there's trees growing in the pools and that kind of stuff. There is a process. Make sure that your builder, your contractor, your project manager is working with the municipality to make sure that that process is completed properly. What steps go in what order. So that's the insurance. Ultimately, you are going to provide a nice, neat, clean, and mechanically sound housing opportunity for the next family. Nice, neat, clean, and mechanically sound. That's going to help you figure out what you need to put in this property. Flip to the hood. What does that mean, Brett? Well, flip to the hood, I always think of this back in my flipping days when we were doing that all the time. I would stand in the road. Say I always start from the outside when I'm looking at what needs to be done. I'm going to stand in the road and I'm literally just going to walk a circle. When I spin that circle, I can look at the other properties in the neighborhood and see, hey, do I need to do this on my property? Do I need to paint the exterior? Do I need to update the siding? Do I need a new driveway? Typically, you can spin a circle and you can see what's happening in that area. The other thing you can do is look at the comparative properties on your comparative market analysis. When you run your CMA, I want to see, hey, how old are the windows on property A? How old are the windows on property B? What kind of windows are on property C? I want to make sure that my comp matches the ones that I'm looking at. So subject versus comps. Subject is the property, is our property, the one we're comparing to other ones. Municipalities. This is really important in certain areas. Market specific. When I'm going through all this stuff and sharing this experience with you guys, it's interesting because so many different houses pop into my mind. And in the book, I had mentioned one that stands out dramatically. I had acquired an up-down duplex. I call these guys up-down. So up-down, side by side, really simple stuff. But it was an up-down. It was built as an up-down, and it was in Southwest Michigan. And it was a great deal. It was in rough shape. Ended up having to tear a barn down on the outside, super old barn. But this house was built as a duplex. I bought it as a duplex. But when I pulled the building permit to renovate the property, to update the property, I was going to go keep it up down. I was going to keep it as a rental. Well, the city did not allow me to keep it as an up down. So through the years, they have to have a city rental inspection completed, and you have to have a rental certification. Through the years, the previous owner did not have that rental certification, so it basically lapsed to what their new zoning is, and their new zoning doesn't allow duplexes. Fascinating to me where this was at. It was around other commercial buildings. Fascinating. No matter how fascinated I was, it didn't matter. It's they have the last say. So this building that I had bought as a duplex up down, I needed to now renovate to a single family home. Now my numbers don't really work for buy and hold on a single family. Long story short, I had to take it to a single family, check the municipality. They're going to drive the work that needs to be done. On this one, luckily I had enough room in the budget. I think we got it for like 40K. We ended up putting 80K in the renovation. We tried renting it out. It was a rough rent in that area because we had acquired it as a duplex. But anyway, we had it for about a year. We ended up selling it, and I believe that one appraised out at 220. So we still did well on the flip, but make sure you're looking at the municipality to drive your scope of work. I love working with contractors who know what it takes for the area that you're working in. They'll have their standards. Hey, I need to get a fire extinguisher in here, or this receptacle is not grounded. The inspector is going to catch the rental inspection is going to catch that. These windows need locks. These certain things your contractor is going to know. Make sure you're looking at the municipality that you're in and what type of rental requirements that they have. Building inspections, what we call the CO, Certificate of Occupancy, those will drive as well too on what's going on, and that's where that flag popped up on that duplex I was talking with you about earlier. Rental grade, what to do, what not to do. Hey, if you have a rental, what kind of products are you putting in it, right? Going my journey, so my history was residential, obviously in construction management, architectural engineering. I went through that process, and I had built I was with a closely held design build company, and it was high end. I come from a world of building $200,000 kitchens. And when you take that perspective and now going into a rental grade, there's a massive change for me. It was even a massive change going from high-end residential redevelopment to flipping houses and over flipping houses, and then now in rentals overdoing it, right? Difference. We are looking at long-term rentals here as opposed to short-term or Airbnb. Again, another difference there. And now for the long term, I don't need to overdo this thing. So what is rental grade? Focus on what is necessary, then what is possible. Within my allowed repair number that I figured in my math equation on the acquisition, what can I do? I start with what I have to do, and then I can step it up if I've got room. Gross rent versus finish level. So if you're looking at, say, a $900 a month house, versus a $2,000 or $2,500 a month house, the finish level is going to be a little different. I'm sure that you can put that together, what grade needs to go with what. That's something we're considering. Look at your rent. Countertop, type of shower, appliances, etc. So countertop in a 900 may be a plastic laminate. Now if I'm trying to get top end 2,200, 2,500 in a different house, different neighborhood, and all my other houses are granite, then I would have to put granite into this house to get the rent. Type of shower, whether it's a tile walk-in or whether it's a fiberglass walk-in, these are the decisions that are really going to drive the budget on your reno. Appliances. I've spent $3,000 on a full set of appliances, and I've spent $15,000 on an oven before. So you can see that this is driving the cost, but make sure you're looking at the rent in order to make your decisions. You should never put a $15,000 oven in a rental unless you are super high end. And I also have colleagues who rent stuff out at $20,000, $30,000 a month. This is crazy stuff too. Carpet versus hard surface. Never, ever, ever have carpet. Never. Carpet is only going to last for maybe 2 turns, maybe more one. When I say turn, it's a tenant in and then they're out and another tenant turns in. So a turn, not something you want to do. It stains, it absorbs smells, it's just really bad. So you want to go with hard surface flooring. And what that means is luxury vinyl plank. This is a newer product. This is something we absolutely love. And I can get in the LVPs for installed, somewhere between $3 and $5 a square foot. So that's really nice. It's a resilient floor. They say it's waterproof. The bad thing about an LVP is if it breaks in the center of the floor, then you got to replace the whole floor to get to it. Where in wood, I can actually cut that piece out of the center. So tile works, wood works. I love the older houses that have the wood floors in them. We just refinish them. It's just something to keep in mind. You want something that's going to be hardy and resilient and take a beating and just keep on rolling. When we turn tenants, I want to have the least amount of money required to get that next tenant in. I'm talking maybe paint, right? That would be great. A perfect scenario if all I had to do was paint the walls, boom, we're ready for another tenant. If I didn't have to paint the walls, it'd be great. Concrete's another thing we see. Say you're on slab, we're doing these days too, is like a stained concrete you can do. Inexpensive to replace and easy to maintain. That's basically the breakdown of this. And rental grade is inexpensive to replace and easy to maintain. I don't need any fancy gadgets, that are controlled with cell phones and, smart this and smart that. That is creating an opportunity for liability, right? An opportunity for something to go wrong and you have to spend time or money to replace. Typically those things are going to cost more. The one things that we do on Airbnbs, though, we'll do like smart locks or smart thermostats. That way the management company can control those off of site. Everything else, it needs to be inexpensive to replace and easy to maintain. Now your investment strategy is also going to drive what repairs are being made. What does that mean? Well, all expenses are not booked the same. So depending on how you spend that money and when is going to be your return on it. And when I'm talking about that specifically, it's depreciation. And when you spend money, it doesn't depreciate the same way depending on what you spend it on. Now I'm going to get into the full accounting thing, but I just want you to keep this in mind enough for you to build a general idea to have this conversation with your property manager and your contractor as well too. Two things we look at here are capital expenditures and operating expenditures. CapEx versus OpEx. CapEx is going to be substantial upgrade or adaptation or improvement of the property. And OpEx is going to be repairs or maintenance. And the big difference there is that capital expenditures are depreciated over a longer amount of time, where the OpEx are depreciated immediately. So if I were to repair a floor for $2,000, that depreciation happens immediately. And if I were to replace all the windows and I spent $8,000, then that depreciation is going to be stretched out over time. It's not an instant deduction. So there are some ways of looking at this. If I'm going to approach a replacement on a repair plan as opposed to a full replace, maybe I can do a few windows versus all the windows. A lot of different investors have different strategies with this. The biggest thing that I can do for you is say this is a conversation you need to have with your property manager, your contractor, and your CPA as well too. Figure out the best approach for you. What I love doing is on my timeline, I'm looking at these properties. I want to buy them and hold them forever. And I want to look at these things to where I'm putting my money out front and making the repairs out front for a couple reasons. Because this is a hold, not a flip. So I'm not putting this in to flip it, but this is a hold. So I want to make sure that the money I'm spending is coming out front. It's not taking away from my monthly expenses. I want to make sure that my cash flow stays out front, and I'm getting that. So all of a sudden, if I need to put $8K into the windows, where does my cash flow go on that? So I'm holding this. That's where I'm putting my money in. My time. If I make an investment and trying to live with a half quality appliance or a toilet that's got a broken flange or something along those lines, I know that's going to cost me time in the long run to where I should just replace that, get it done, and move on. Valves. Water valves are a good one. Replacing those things so they don't drip, or they don't cause a problem. If you see that during the renovation process, it needs to be taken care of. The other thing we look at on the timeline is the quality of life for the tenant. I have this budget for repairs. I want to provide a nice, neat, clean, and mechanically sound housing opportunity for the next family. What my wife Erin and I do, and the kids, we will stay in our Airbnbs to feel what it's like. And we always say, I want to provide housing opportunities that my family would live in. And you need to do that budget-minded, though. I'm not saying going in there and put granite on everything and tile walk-in showers with infinity edge pool. That's not the way. The way is, can you live there? Is it something that you would have your family stay in? And if not, then what kind of quality work are we actually putting out? Your team needs to be established. And depending on where you're at as an investor, obviously there's trial by fire on a lot of this stuff. I've said it time and time and time again, Slack is the way to go. Slack provides a platform of communication for us that we talk to all of our team members on, from the acquisition side all the way up through the property management side. Everybody is on Slack. Absolutely love it. These are the types of things that I want, bam, Slack. These are the types of things that I want to see from the team and how I want to see them. So weekly updates. I have property channels on my Slack that show weekly updates. You can check another video out on Slack. I'll break that down, how we do all of this. But I want you to be able to quickly see what's going on, not have to search for things and find things. Draw requests, I want that to come through Slack as well too. There's ways that you can integrate email into Slack. My whole world has changed drastically. I don't look at emails. The only people that call this thing anymore are telemarketers. I don't do text message anymore. Everything is done through Slack. That's what gets my attention, and I can control the notifications on that as well too. So I love seeing draw requests come through there. Contractor or project manager communications with property manager. So in my property channel, the weekly updates for a renovation, my property manager is in those channels too, so they can see, they keep eyes on where the project is at. Hey, we're going to wrap this one up next week. So the property manager then can see, I've got a property that needs pictured, keyed, and ready to rock marketing next week. So everybody's keeping in on the same line of communication. Everything in writing. So when you have a renovation project going, you've probably seen the video before about this too, everything in writing, is when there's a change, make sure you get in writing. If there's an addition to the scope, we call it scope creep, make sure it's in writing. And I need to see a couple things. What is it? What product's going in specifically? Product, manufacturer, quantity, what color, and the cost. But this one too is important, the time. How does this change order affect the time of the project? Because, come on, that's going to affect a lot of things, especially in this time of year. Currently in 2022 or the end of 2022, the market conditions, right? It's actually a little tougher to get houses rented out in December, right around the holidays, and the money market's going crazy, right? So the interest rate. So make sure your timeline is addressed in writing as well too. Whenever there's changes, make sure you get everything in writing. Make sure your team sets clear expectations and communicates openly. I can't express this enough, the importance of this enough. This is really important. So making sure that your team is able to say, hey, there's a problem here. Here are the solutions. Hey, I've got this property coming up, and we're a week behind on this project already. I'm not going to be able to start this one until a week later. All these things, they need to have open lines of communication. What I love about our teams is that we've built teams where not only are we openly communicating challenges, but we're coming with solutions. That's solution-oriented thinking is really important. I'm sure that you experience benefits of that in your profession as well too. All right, so here are some ways that you can go at getting some resources, some of the stuff that we've talked about in this video. What is it? How can we get these things? Well, first of all, there's a book. It's an Amazon bestseller. Absolutely love the journey of writing this book and just downloading my brain onto these. But we've also given you some great resources. You can download our spreadsheets, that kind of thing. More of this information here. How to Get Rich as a Doctor. Check it out. You can purchase it on Amazon. It is Kindle, paperback, and hardcover as well too. Facebook investor groups are great for this as well too. Say whether it's renovation, looking for contractors. Hey, what are other investors doing for this type of product? What kind of repairs are you doing for a $900 a month rent? I'm in this market in this neighborhood. What are you guys doing? So lean on the community for those questions. You can get some referrals for resources as well too. Bigger Pockets is great. There's lots and lots of information on Bigger Pockets to pull out, whether it's scope of works or other contractors, other investors, things that work, things that don't work. It's a great resource. Local investor meetups. You can go to REIs. You can schedule a night out with your significant other, have a drink, whatever you may want to do. Just great groups of people around and out there for you to meet with and talk. Other doctors. You're around a lot of other doctors. Who is buying real estate? I've talked about this a lot in other videos, is talk about what you want to be or where you want to go. That's going to attract those people who are already doing that around you. You're going to start hearing it and seeing it more when you start talking about it. So leaning on other doctors and learning what's worked, what hasn't worked. Always want to know, hey, how many rentals do you have? How much time do you spend managing them? What's the worst thing that you found in your experience? Ask these types of questions. Bam, we made it through the 6 steps to leverage passive cash flow. We just finished up number 5 in renovations. Thank you for your time here today. I really appreciate it. And stay tuned. Catch step number 6. This whole process is laid out on YouTube. Again, it's laid out again in the book. I'm hoping that I'm able to bring you value, and check out some of the other videos as well too, where I'll dive down into each one of these little topics even farther. I appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you soon.